Hey guys, welcome to Open My Podcast. Today's special guest, the one, the only, from my white belt. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Jim, how are you?
Hey, Marco. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm a little bit excited today, so just bear with me. I have a little bit of butterflies in my stomach. So I've been following you for a while now, and I've just seen your channel grow so much. So yeah, it's just thank you for being here today. Really,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate you having me. And those butterflies are going to go away real quick. Just a couple bros talking about Jiu
That's it.
Jitsu. That's all this
That's it.
is.
Normal stuff here. And before we start, before the whole my white belt, about 10 years ago, a lot of people know your story that you weighed almost 430 pounds.
Yep.
And a lot of people I find have this turning point in their life that they say they're going to do something to change their life, something that impacted them, either a certain scenario or something that day happened or something that somebody said to them specifically. So my question to you was, about 10 years ago, before you embarked on this journey,
Hmm.
what really triggered you? Do you remember specifically what triggered you to say, I need to do something to my life right now?
Yeah, I had basically given up. 20 some odd years ago, I had gastric bypass surgery. I was 430 pounds. And, like, I don't know, maybe 20, let's just say roughly 20, give or take, years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I had gastric bypass with the idea that that was going to finally fix this problem of me being morbidly obese. And it did, but only for a period of time. So I went from 430 pounds down to around 270 pounds, but within 3 years I had regained all the work. I had regained all the weight. So I went from 430 pounds down to 270 and back up to around 400. And I just gave up. I just said, I guess this is just who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And I think a lot of people have something in their life that they want to change or where they want to gain some ground. The story of actually what happened a decade ago, it's a pretty interesting story, but I kind of begin with the idea that everything that I went through in my life that led me to becoming morbidly obese, it all makes sense. And everybody has a sad story, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yes.
sure that if you look over the course of your life, Marco, you can find a sad story. I'm open and public about my sad story. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not my sad story that makes me interesting. It's what we decide to do with our sad story. So, the short version of a long story is that I had completely given up. I had just decided that I was going to be the fat guy, and that's just how it was going to be. I mean, I had gastric
Yep.
bypass surgery, that didn't work, right? But what I realized was we really are a culture of people that want to treat symptoms
Mm-hmm.
without getting to the root issue. And for me, there was no way that I was ever actually going, and I know this now, I didn't know it specifically 10 years ago, but uh, there's no fast track. There's no magic bullet that is going to heal you of your pain and bring you into the life that you want. And even though the things that happened to me were not my fault, dealing with them is my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So I can go in and blame, I can blame my family, I can blame bullies, I can blame my dad, I can do all these things, right? Or I can beat myself up for my past, but none of that is going to move me in the direction. So the short version of this long story was one morning I woke up and I don't know why. This is 10 years ago last month. I woke up and I said, I'm going to go for a walk. I put my sneakers on. I went for a walk. And while I went for a walk, I was just praying a little prayer. And the prayer that I was praying was, why do I know what to do, but I don't do it? And I'm not telling your listeners that they should pray. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
my story. So I'm walking through my little town and I just kept asking that question, God, why do I know what to do, but I don't do it. And, we've all been, I think most of us have been in that position where there's something that we want to accomplish, something that we want to do, and we know exactly what the steps are in our heads, but we don't do it for one reason or another. And as I'm walking and as I'm asking this question, I felt like what I heard, and it wasn't like an audible voice, I'm not schizophrenic, but it was like this sense of God saying to me, you know what to do and you don't do it because you are a slave to your feelings and you have a
Wow.
choice. And I was like, well, shit.
No shit.
Right? I was like,
Yeah.
shit. I'm a slave to my feelings. And I went home, I watched a documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. 3 weeks later, I had a gig. I'm a singer-songwriter, speaker guy, and I've been doing that in a bunch of contexts since I was about 18. And I came off stage, and this woman that I knew who she was, but I didn't know her. And she walked up to me, and she said, hey, Jim, can I talk to you for a second? And I said, sure. And her first words to me were, hey, I watched Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead 3 weeks ago, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. We had watched the same documentary
Wow.
on the same day, and this woman just basically loved me enough and cared about me enough to say, enough is enough. This has to change. And then
Wow.
she prayed for me, and it was, I mean, one thing I'll say just as we begin this episode of your show is that I really can talk. So feel free to
Yeah.
jump in
No,
at
no, I'm letting
any
you.
point in time
I'm
and,
letting you do
and,
your.
and interrupt me and shut me down. Do whatever you do.
I'm
Because
trying to embrace it.
I will literally go.
No, I'm trying to embrace what you're saying here. It's really, you got like two key words that stuck to me: blame and pain. But also
Yes.
going back to what you just said about how that same person saw the same documentary that you did. So that clearly for you, that was like the sign. That was like the moment kind of thing, right? You could say.
Yeah, it's just like things are lining up. And the truth is, I think really, Marco, I think things are lining up all the time if we choose to look at the world that way.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins will often ask people that he's working with, he'll say, hey, what could you be grateful? What in your life could you be grateful for if you wanted to be?
Yeah.
And it's like, the stuff is there.
Yeah. It's funny that you said Tony Robbins because I have in my notes, like to me, you're like the Tony Robbins of the BJJ community now. Like you're the ones that gets like the white belts motivated and continue like to get them going. But yeah,
I know
before.
he's kind of a polarizing guy, and a lot of people don't like him, and they think he's full of shit. And I'm sure there are people who think I'm full of shit too. But and in
Probably
some
me
ways,
too.
and listen, and let's be honest, if we're human beings, we're kind of a lot of human beings are at least partially full of shit. So
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm okay with both being considered to be the Tony Robbins of jiu-jitsu. I wish I had his money, and I can also
Don't we
understand
all?
why that might be off-putting to some people. But
Yeah. I wanted to, Jim, you said before two words that stuck to me right now was pain and blame.
yeah,
So for me, what triggered my moment, like what I'm thinking back now, is like the pain that I had, what led me to my, let's say, jujitsu or social media kind of adventure,
yeah,
was one day I hurt my back very slightly. And I went to bed. And the next morning, I woke up and it just locked. It seized, and I just started crying. My wife saw me in tears. I was at the lowest of the low. So for me, that pain, and I remember specifically, I was like crying to my wife, saying, "I said, Amanda, how can I do this to you? Like, how can I? It's all my fault. Maybe it's your fault too." I don't know. I was just like screaming the most because you're in pain, right? You're just screaming random things. I'm swearing every book, every word in the Bible, and off of the Bible. It's like, what am I doing? It was excruciating pain.
I don't think they were words in
I'm
the
sorry,
Bible,
not the
Marco.
Bible. I say,
I think they were the words. I think they were the words that they left out of the Bible.
That's
Though
what
the
I meant to
Bible
say.
does have a handful of pretty funny things if you look for them.
That's what I meant to say. But that moment triggered me because I said, how could I be in this state of mind, this physical state right now? And I can't. And I remember telling my wife specifically, how can I ever be a father one day if we decide to have children? I was like, I couldn't accept this life. And little
Yeah.
did we know, I had a son well, my wife was pregnant that same month, so that was
Oh
like
wow.
my changing point too. So that pain, I find that the pain we go through in life is actually the biggest blessing we can have, and not a lot of people understand that, because I think we have to suffer a little bit in life to really understand, like to go through the hurdles in life. And I find hurting my back, going through that 1 year of can't put my socks on, all this stuff,
How did you
let
hurt your back?
oh, what initially I hurt my back many times because I'm not training over the years. But what really triggered it was we have crazy weather here in Montreal, Quebec, and it was snowing a lot, and it was that
Mm-hmm.
wet, heavy snow,
Oh,
and
that's awful.
I must have turned some kind of weird movement. I don't know, but I heard a little click, and I'm like, okay, that's new. I went inside, felt a little tired, felt weird, and the next morning I just like my back literally exploded.
Yeah.
I thought I was paralyzed. I'm like, I never felt this ever again. I never felt this in my life. Like what's going on in my body? There was a fire in my spine going up and down. It was horrible.
Oh no.
And again, going that was the pain part, and pain is a blessing for me. But the blame was always going through my mind, like how we blame ourselves. Like I was, at one point I was blaming my wife. You were saying, oh, it's because of you, I wasn't training, it's because of you, I don't do these things more. Then I was saying, oh no, then it's my fault, or I shouldn't be blaming her. I was in this spiral of blame, pain, confusion, and it was such a
Right.
dark time. Like we go through such horrible times in our life. It's horrible.
We're just in this place culturally too now where I think like
Hmm.
finally guys like Jocko Willink and Tom DeBlas are
Hmm.
like high level, solid men, undeniable
Hmm.
warriors, undeniable tough guys.
Yeah.
And those guys both are willing to be transparent. For Tom, he's being transparent about everything that he went through as a kid, being sexually abused,
Yes.
and being a strong, powerful, confident enough man to talk about that stuff, that
Yeah.
part of his life. And then Jocko with the extreme ownership, his whole thing is take responsibility. Blaming yourself and beating yourself up is not taking responsibility.
Yes.
Taking responsibility says, I'm going to own the behaviors that need to occur to make this better.
Hmm.
There are
True.
a lot of people who are really good at blaming themselves and shaming themselves, and they don't do shit to
Yeah.
change anything.
Yeah.
Taking responsibility is neither denying blame nor shaming yourself. It's really about your ability to respond to the circumstances at hand to improve them.
Absolutely. 100%.
I'm very preachy today.
I was like, yo,
Everybody do what I say.
can I get an amen?
Glory, hallelujah.
But going back now, and let's say you had that moment where you decided to make that change. Was jujitsu the first thing that came to mind, or like how did
Last
you
thing. No, the
last?
last thing
What
that
did you
came
try
to my mind.
before that? Before jujitsu?
Well, I had done so I lost most I probably lost like 140 or so pounds
Wow.
prior to starting jujitsu. And I had done the karate lessons and that
Mhm.
sort of thing growing up. And so I was always the things that I love as an adult are the things that I really loved as a kid, whether it's
Mm.
fishing or music or thinking about God or martial arts. I just loved martial arts. I took karate lessons. My parents got me a gi before they could even afford. I asked them
Oh
for a
wow.
gi
Yeah.
before they could even like afford to get me karate lessons, and I would literally
Oh,
just like hang around the house in my gi. This little
that's
kid with a gi,
awesome. That's
so
amazing.
funny.
Yeah.
But I had, probably maybe a year or so before I started losing weight, before I had that, and to call it losing weight is like an understatement. Before I began my transformation,
Hmm.
the guy who is now my professor, Liam McGowan, he's a second degree black belt. At the time, he was a brown belt. And he invited me, his fat friend, to come to a class because he knew that I loved martial arts. I was like, hey, he's come to a class. And I went. And they had a loaner gi that fit me. I couldn't believe it. And so, no, to answer your question, no, I wasn't. I guess I thought after that first trial class, where I was literally hurting for 6 weeks after that
I
trial
believe
class
that.
because I
I
was
believe that.
so fat and it was so bad, and it was an advanced class, and I had no business being there. And this guy was on top of me, like working mount to S mount to this awful cross collar choke, and I just was like dying.
And me now.
Yeah, just dying, right? So I wasn't thinking. I guess I had thought to myself, and I had said this to Liam, that if I ever did a martial art again, that it would no doubt be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But I just thought, "Ugh, this is so hard." But he kept talking about opening an academy, and 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 Liam is the kind of guy who he's he's not all talk, he's all action. And so within 5 years, within a few years, he had earned his black belt and was opening his own academy. And at that point, I was the first person to sign up.
Oh, nice. So your first class was really like the shocker class. You like took a couple of weeks off because it's normal. Like if you haven't trained in the longest time, you're gonna get all these injuries. It's normal, and it's surprising that you continued
Oh
after
no,
that
I took
because
years off. I did
oh,
the
you took
trial
years.
class.
You
Yeah,
think okay,
years. It was
okay,
years. I
years.
took that trial
Okay,
class at his old academy,
yeah,
and then it was years. It was a long time.
okay. And then after that, when you started again,
So
it was
when I actually started after he opened First Colony, I was in. And my first year, I was kind of a baby. Like I would take time off after. If I had a little tweak, I'd like, oh, I can't go today. My knee hurts. And he's like,
mm-hmm,
well, dude, if you're gonna miss class every time you have a little tweak or an ache or a pain,
yeah,
you're gonna have a real hard time getting anywhere in jujitsu.
pretty much.
But I haven't stopped. I haven't stopped.
That's great.
I remember the first day. At your what rank are you? Are you a black belt?
I have no rank. I'm in no gi, so I've been doing a
Oh,
little over 2 years. So
okay.
we're starting our, well, from what I was told, we're starting our rank system in the no gi. So whenever that comes, for now
Okay.
I'm the rankless warrior. Let's say.
Okay, great. You're a rankless warrior, probably like a blue belt. How many times a week are you training?
With my lifestyle, two times a week.
And was there at your academy, is there like a beginner class, or do you just all kind of get thrown in there together?
You all get thrown in there, kind of thing. But the
Yeah.
coach always like sees who's new. So like, and everyone like, there's this understanding with the higher belts, like don't go 100% or like with the newer people. They have to like, we want to keep people there, not frighten them. So I was really lucky to find this gym. Actually, I found this gym by searching closest gym to my house, and yeah, they've been super great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, at our academy, we now have a beginner class,
Hmm.
Monday and Tuesday nights, which I actually teach, which is kind of funny. But when I
Nice.
started at First Colony, there was no beginner class, and you were literally just thrown to
To
the
the wolves.
wolves.
Yeah.
And it was like a basic armbar drill from close guard, and I couldn't even lift my foot off the ground. I was so inflexible
Hmm.
and just locked up, and couldn't even move, man. And I just felt like between mat burn and gi rash and tweaking this and pulling that, and not knowing how to move in such a way to not sustain these minor injuries. But it was constant and it sucked. But for some reason, and I'm sure you can relate, for some reason, even with the tweaks and the tears and the strains and all of it, I just kept falling more and more in love with it.
That's absolutely true. Like for me, my base was okay. I blew my back, and that was the worst thing I ever felt. Moving forward, I should have no excuses in life. Like nothing. Yeah, there was burns, there was infections, there was cuts, there was new pains. I didn't know my shoulder can hurt like that. My ankles, my like my first choke ever, my throat. I thought it was. I thought my throat, I couldn't breathe anymore because it was so inflamed the next day because it's the swellings. Like what happened to me? I don't know what happened, but yeah, I love it. It takes a special kind of person to love this type of
It's the weirdest thing,
pain,
man.
torture.
It's
I don't
the
know.
weirdest thing.
We
Like
pay
what?
money. to get tortured, and we love it.
I know. That's how I can tell when we have new people come in, like the trial class
Hmm.
people who come in, and jujitsu has a pretty high rate of attrition, but
Hmm.
our academy has a pretty great retention has a pretty great retention rate, and you can tell sort of how a guy's going to do or a girl's going to do if on their first night you stick them in some blue belts
Hmm.
closed guard
Yeah.
and they're smiling as they're getting crushed. If they're smiling while they're getting crushed, it's almost like watching them come home.
Yeah,
Like
that's
they're
a
getting
keeper.
yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, you got a trial class guy has never done anything
Yeah.
and he gets swept and mounted and he's laying there underneath somebody with no idea how to get out, but he's got the biggest smile on his face. You're like, okay, you're in.
You're in the
You're
club.
you're one of us, you sicko.
Yeah, I love that. So like, there's gonna be those people that they come to jiu-jitsu, and typically, say the bigger, stronger guys, the use and strength will work kind of thing, and you have that feeling, that vibe that yeah, it's not gonna last, and they never come back. So you figured, but those people you're talking about, like they smile and they enjoy it and they come back. I get so happy because it's just like your community is just growing after. So you get like more. For me, it's like, oh great, I have another friend in jujitsu kind of thing. It's so cool. Like, and
Totally.
we can share the same weirdness. Like, what'd you break this week? Oh, my knee, I got scratched this week. You all same thing. It's like it's awesome.
We have a guy at our academy who came in and he drove to the academy and parked in the parking lot 4 times before he worked up the confidence to walk through
Mm.
the door.
Oh
And
god.
now he's a 4-stripe white belt and
So,
has made like best friends with some of our guys,
yeah,
and he's just doing so well. But
that's
4 times, Marco, he
amazing.
came and sat in the parking lot. But when he finally walked through the door, he
You're
was
it.
a smile. He was a smiler.
That's
He was a
awesome.
smiler, and he was in, and he's killing it.
Yeah.
He's doing so great.
I have to admit, like I didn't like I signed up to my gym to be in shape again. So I want to like beat my broken back kind of scenario. So I was like, okay, let me try boxing. So boxing got me back again. So the movement, like I still had pain, but it was going away slowly. But man, I didn't know my school was known for jiu-jitsu. So I had no intention of starting jiu-jitsu. And a buddy of mine who was in the boxing class, like, you should try it. You should try it. Like, really, Marco, go for it. The same friend who told me today, Marco, you should do your own podcast. So it's that same friend. So he's a very good friend. And
He's a good friend.
he's a good
Keep
friend.
that guy
Oh,
around.
he's around. He's around. And I just saw these guys going back and forth. Some days with gis, spandex. I went one day to look in the back, like, wait, what's the big deal with this jujitsu? Let's see. I just see like people flying, the grunts, the intensity. I'm like, holy crap! I want that. I'm not ready, but I want that. And I was so it's like a perfect. I felt like it was my answer to my prayer, like to find this gym, to start off with boxing, but then to like merge to jujitsu. It's like it was so perfect. And the gym I'm at is like they're fantastic. They take care. It's like a real. The people say family. No, it really is a family because
Yeah.
even when I do boxing, like it's fun. You meet people too, but like jujitsu, it's just another level of like friendship. I find like it's like if I say the word jiu-jitsu, like and someone's around me, like in those jiu-jitsu, it's like you're instantly friends kind of thing. I love that.
Did you anticipate that going into training? Did you think that it was going to be as much of a family as it turned out to be?
I'm still getting used to people being so nice in a violent sport. I'm still not used to it. I love it. I didn't expect none of this. I just want to go there. I thought I was gonna go to this gym, train for a year, and I'll be back to normal again. I had no idea I was gonna go down this path of crazy people and sweats and cuts and whatnot. It's just
It's like we're
it's an addiction.
intentionally engaging in this thing that's I gave this little speech the other night just 'cause we had a couple new guys and there's always like a couple new guys in the room that they go a little harder than maybe they need to just
Hmm.
because they don't know any better.
Yeah,
And my little speech was, hey guys, just remember you're not training against your training partner. You're training with your training partner. And
exactly.
it's not you against your training partner, it's us against the world. And I think it's that kind of mentality that says it's you and me, and I want you to be here. I want you to be able to go to work tomorrow I want you to be
Yes.
able to go to work and earn your paycheck and support your family, so I don't want to injure you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get injured by you. I want to train jiu-jitsu really hard, you and I, because the world is better if you and I are formidable,
Yeah. Right on.
you know?
I, yeah, I do get that. Actually, I get that at times. That there are those certain, like, you have to be judgy a bit sometimes, especially with the new people, or like you have to be careful who you roll with, because like I know everybody at the gym, and it's funny because I know everyone's personality and their level of play and their
Yeah.
aggression. So some people
Right,
are like,
right.
you can have like a good purple belt. His name is Lincoln. He's super nice, super calm. He doesn't roll 100%. He goes like he can go on and off, but he's fun to roll with because we're
Yeah.
practicing and he challenged me in a safe way. Then there's other guys who can take it up to 90%. It's like, okay, we're doing this today. Gotta lose a little bit more strength, and it's like, okay.
I like going hard with my peers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like going hard with like a really good blue belt. I'm a purple belt now.
Mm-hmm.
I like going hard with like a really good blue belt or a really good black belt, brown belt, like, or Ashi, who's like a 3 stripe. He's Matt the Ashi Kid Dolan. Whenever I bring
Mm-hmm.
him up on my podcast, it's like a drinking game because I talk about him a lot because he's a phenom.
Mm-hmm.
But I like going hard with skilled guys, and I don't like going hard with like white belts.
Absolutely.
I would rather just go in with a white belt and kind of like almost be a grappling dummy, just because I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to have to deal with a 250-pound white belt coming in just like falling on my knee or
Yeah,
something.
exactly.
I'm
100%.
52 years old. I don't want to.
You don't need that. We don't. None of us need that at any age.
No, and I'll roll with them and give them a good roll. And they're not, obviously, they're not all like that, but they're just some. I think this is a really important point, actually, that
Mm-hmm.
you really choose your roles wisely and don't avoid people because you're afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, if I avoided all the people at my academy that terrify me, I wouldn't roll with anybody. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think advocating for yourself is really important.
Actually, that's a good thing to mention because I at one point had this fear of or opening up to, let's say, rolling with my coach or anyone higher than me. So I would always be super cautious and I wouldn't do any type of movement. I'll just like stay in a fetal position. Whereas now I'm more open to challenge myself and like go a little bit harder on my coach. But of course, he's teaching me valuable lessons too, and he's always readjusting and like. But I'm happy that I have that courage now. Let's say to like open up to higher belts, and sometimes it's working off. I can pass their guard or surprise them. It's a great feeling after a couple of years, 2 years now. So it's cool to.
Man, I love rolling with my coaches because I know that there's a high likelihood that I'm going to look like an idiot, but I also know there's a very, very high likelihood that they're going to spend time with me after the roll,
Yeah.
explaining what I did wrong and sharpening me.
I love it when the coach, like you roll with the coach, they show you the move of the day. Let's say omoplata or whatever. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And you try that same move on your coach, and he's already smiling because he already has like a gazillion ways to get out of it. But it's like, you taught me this. He's like, yeah, I know, but now I think of another way to get out, kind of thing. It's like it's so funny and frustrating at the same time. That's why I love rolling my coach. And actually, you made me think of something. Going back to partners and choosing partners, I find that could be for jujitsu like therapy for some people because sometimes when people go a little bit hard or depending on their day, I think maybe they can take out certain frustrations on their overall life or their day. So sometimes you have a bad day, you notice, oh, why is Lincoln going a little bit extra hard today? He's never like this. Like, I find like
Yeah.
subconsciously like we are helping each other in a weird way through our roles.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I think, I know that with the, th- the thing that my professor does, back to your point about the move of the day,
Mm-hmm.
he'll teach us something, and I never have to worry that he is teaching us something that he doesn't believe in. A, because I don't question his character, but B, because when I watch him roll after class, I watch him testing what he taught us
Mm-hmm.
against a broad spectrum of abilities in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I also watch him land what he's teaching under stress.
Yeah. So you know
So
it works. Yeah.
yeah, so I know he's teaching us. I know he's teaching us what he believes in, and I'm also watching it work. So that's also very helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And being something I want to touch base on is like when these new white belts come in, and you know they're going through the roles, they're going through the emotions, they don't know what they're doing, they're freaking out. Do you ever have like any words of encouragement like to them, like as they're rolling? Like, guys, I know sometimes I see them frustrated, and I try to be like, like, don't worry, you're doing okay, kind of thing. Like, do you offer any words of encouragement to any white belts as they're
Oh,
rolling?
I mean,
Like,
always.
yeah,
There's this movie, the movie Willy Wonka
of course,
and the Chocolate
original,
Factory.
the
Yeah,
original.
the original. Of
Okay,
course, that's
OG
the
one.
only
Yes,
one.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So there's a point in that movie where Veruca Salt is like, that little spoiled girl is just being annoying. She's like, "Who's ever heard of a snozberry?" And
Yes.
and Willy Wonka grabs her by the face and says, "Veruca, darling, we are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of the dreams."
Hmm.
And I feel like there's a thing that happens. You notice he doesn't look at her and say, "I'm a music maker and I'm a dreamer of dreams." He's inviting her into something. He looks at, she's staring at him, and he goes, "We are the music makers and we are the dreamers of the dreams." And I feel like when a new person walks through that door, when a person walks through the same door that you and I walked through, you're 2 years in, I'm 5 years in. We both can very clearly remember how hard it was to walk through that door.
Hooray.
And I want that person to walk in and believe that they have been invited into a place where they are now a music maker. Right.
Absolutely.
And it's, I look at, in terms of the things that I say, I will look at a new way. I kind of like a lot of what I do. I'm just almost word for word copying what my professors and coaches have said to me. So like, I'm going to say what I say, but I'm not like a great guy. I'm just a guy that has had great coaches. And I look at people as we're helping them with their gi, tying a belt around their waist, or talking to them about the etiquette and customs of our school. And I look at them and I say, "Hey, just so you know, for your first 6 months, don't bother trying to remember anything." And they just look at me like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you're not taking lessons here. You're training.
Training.
And
Yes.
don't worry about remembering anything. Your only job is to show up. That is it. Just show up."
Absolutely.
And because I want the pressure, I want the pressure to be fully off.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I want the pressure, and then, but I also don't. But here's the other thing, Marco. Here's the flip side of this. We can't blow smoke up people's asses, and I'm not. I am. I probably personally have to fight to be a little less gushing,
Hmm.
because it really is a balance, and you don't want to. I don't believe in participation trophies.
No, for sure. And it's true, like what you said about this, the first 6 months. Like, yeah, I was at that moment too, where like I'm trying to remember everything. I still have my notebooks. I was right. I still today write every class down, how I perform, everything, and I will actually read it back every class. Like, okay, well, I was like trying to force myself to memorize all these moves, and that was like the biggest mistake I made because I was just so focused on every other move that I wasn't really good at, anyways, and I wasn't focusing on one thing, showing up and trying to escape. I think escaping should be one of the first things, the base to before you try. I'm gonna go for a kimura today. Like I can't even go for a kimura. I know what it is. It's like I
Right.
think we jumped the gun in the first 6 months. Like I'm gonna go for a rear naked choke. I'm like, there's so many steps. Whereas now, let's say my coach would show us whatever the rear naked choke now. uh Now I'm starting to see those micro details, like those micro little
Yeah.
movements. Oh, what if you breathe like this? Oh, if you put your hands slightly here, or just like, oh wow, I feel now I'm finally absorbing the information and it's sticking to me. Whereas before it's like, okay, almost what plata, this plata,
I
this. It's
know.
like another language. Did you have a problem with the language, learning jiu-jitsu language? I didn't expect that. Like, it's there's
No,
so
I
many
think
names.
I got that, but to your point about like the details, so we have this guy, his name is Keith Charest, and he's a black belt, and he came up with our black belt. And he just, you know, in the last few months has started training with us. And this guy he's teaching this class on Saturdays called Everything from the Back. And he's just added these details to back mount that I look at it and I just go, where was this 5 years ago? Where the hell was this 5 years ago? And, you know, every once in a while, I'll say something like that, and Liam will go, yeah, no, we definitely did that like last year in February. And I was like, shit. But yeah, those little details are like just pieces of information. It's like, are you keeping this stuff? Like at some point in time when we're like 9 years in, are they going to take us into a room and be like, okay, here's the deal. This is how this really works. We've been showing you all this stuff, but now that you're a brown belt, now we're going to like show you all the real stuff, and you'll be able to destroy everybody and you'll be a black belt in a year. I don't think that happens, but it wouldn't surprise me.
And Jim, was there ever a moment that, let's say now you're a purple belt, but let's say before purple belt, was there ever a moment that you were like, you know what, I think I'm gonna quit jiu-jitsu, like really gonna quit? Not just saying like, Jareth had that moment where like, I'm gonna stop doing this. I reached my pinnacle. I got my blue belt or whatever. I think I'm good. I'm done. I'm solid. Did you ever have that moment?
No, and I can tell you, as corny as this is going to sound,
Yes.
and this is going to sound really corny, when I think I couldn't love it anymore,
Mm-hmm.
I love it more.
Right.
When I think I couldn't enjoy it, like I've been in a funk. I've been in like a jiu-jitsu slump.
Mm-hmm.
And like today, man, this morning I trained for 2 hours, and then I helped teach. I won't even say that. I trained for 2 hours, and then I was like the uki or assistant for our law enforcement class taught by the incredible Kurt Veed. And I'm just like, my game isn't solid. I don't feel like I'm doing particularly well, and I have to practice what I preach when I'm in these seasons.
Yeah.
And even though my game right now isn't at all what I want it to look like, man, I just love it. I love it. I can't wait to get back tomorrow.
Yeah. I feel that.
And work it and try to get better.
It's funny because I have that feeling now, but before, I guess because in my situation, there was like, I think a thing a lot of people are focused on is belts, ranking. And because for me, there was, well, now we're going to have a ranking system soon, and that made me very happy. But before, there was no ranking system. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm a white belt forever. I'll never be any better than anyone else. I'll just be this white belt. But in reality, I was getting better, and to this day now, I'm getting, I'm giving brown belts and purple belts a hard time, or I'm actually winning some rounds. I'm no Gordon Ryan, but I'm surprising people, which is a huge accomplishment for me. So do you find that these ranks can cause a problems on people's like ego or something, or like their mindset?
I think it's complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that ranks are irrelevant. And I think some people make more of them than they should.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, listen, here's the deal. Particularly, and this is going to get weird now for a minute,
Okay.
but
I like weird.
there's a lot of people, particularly men, who maybe didn't have a great relationship with their dad.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they haven't had a lot of affirmation in their lives. And when they work hard at something like jiu-jitsu, and at the end of class, their coach invites them up and puts a piece of tape on their belt to say, that's saying to that person, you have earned this. You have demonstrated proficiency
Mm-hmm.
in this, and we're going to acknowledge that we see you. We see you. And so I think it's good to that end. And at the same time, I think that each individual has to look inside, especially if they care too much about the rank, and if they've made everything about the rank.
Yeah.
that is an opportunity for that individual to look inside their heart and figure out what that piece of tape or that new color belt is taking the place for,
Yeah, absolutely.
and really do that work.
Yeah, that makes yeah.
And I love getting stripes. I love getting stripes. I wanted my blue belt so bad, Marco. Marco, I wanted my blue belt, and I was convinced. For some reason, I had completely convinced myself this one particular week. I was convinced that I was getting my blue belt. I can't tell you why. Like maybe I had seen a box come to the gym from like 93 brand or something. I'm like, oh, that's my blue belts in that box, you know? And I was just like literally, you know, at the way our school works is there really aren't tests and that sort of thing. You're presented with your rank whenever they feel like they want to give it to you. And I just was like, okay, today's the day. I know I'm getting it today. And nothing. And like, then I thought, okay, well, they're probably just being funny. And after class, they're going to be like, oh, by the way, one more thing. And then that didn't happen. And then I was like, all right, well, I'm not getting it. But I still was convinced. And I walked down to my car and I thought to myself that they were going to have like put it under my windshield, my windshield wiper.
Still nothing.
Nothing. But, and I was just kind of like, you know, and then my purple belt, you know, I got one of our other guys got his purple belt. I didn't get my purple belt that day. And I was feeling really low, and I was at a restaurant, and literally John Danaher walked in the door and like he had like literally walked in the restaurant that I was at while I was complaining about not getting my purple belt. And he sat down at our table with us. I have video of it. I thought I was having a stroke. And so I guess, and the moral of the story is belts have their place,
yes,
but the real reward is getting to train jiu-jitsu.
It is.
Jiu-jitsu in and of itself is the prize. The belt is not the prize.
Absolutely. For me personally, I look as if there is a belt system in our school, ranking as, you know, just like your dedication to jiu-jitsu. That's how I see it now. And whereas I love to go to jiu-jitsu and I do it for jiu-jitsu and for my well-being, that's when my game like shot up a lot, because before it was like I was so focused on like learning every move right away and, you know, getting the belts, and the concentration wasn't there. It's like I was putting my energy in the wrong places. So I find, yes, ranking system is kind of cool and it is important to some people, and maybe one day it could be to me, where if there's a belt system or not, or maybe we'll get colored shorts or sleeves. I don't know what's gonna work with no gi, but
yeah, it's usually colored sleeves on the rash guard. So have you never trained gi?
I've trained gi maybe about a dozen times. I liked it. It's just that I guess
your academy doesn't do it.
No, my academy's known for gi. Surprisingly, it's just that I guess with my schedule at home and my wife finishing late on certain days, it's just that no gi fit better with my schedule. And at the same time, I bought a gi. My first class was a gi class, and I had this idea like, okay, I'm gonna go in gi because I know it's a slightly more controlled environment. I can have grips to work with, so maybe me being a little bit older and all these 20-year-olds rolling, I'll be safer. That was my idea, my vision, my plan.
Yeah, it's a fair vision. That's a fair plan.
Then I did no gi. I'm like, okay, what the hell's this? I can still move.
Yeah.
I can still move with these young kids, and knock on wood, I'm still moving. I'm getting more flexible. Going to be 38 in about 2 weeks.
You're a kid.
I'm still a kid. But apparently, if you're over 30 for the 20-year-olds, you're like a dinosaur now. So anything over 30 is considered old. Yeah. So
try being 52. We had this group of kids training with us called the Dog Boys, and there's one dog girl, and they're all in their 20s. And like I totally got to be like the uncle. Nice. I got to be the uncle to these guys, and it was really fun.
Oh man.
Yeah, old man jiu-jitsu. It's like young man jiu-jitsu, but a lot slower.
But that's why everyone like loves you, because you're it's never too late. It is never too late.
It's never too late. Ever. We had a 73-year-old guy at our last location who got his blue belt, Steve.
Wow. I believe you even saw on Instagram, maybe I forget when, but some reels or some posts about a 7-year-old doing competitions still.
Yeah, so yeah. No, they're out there. It's masters, and they're 80. Listen, you can look up on YouTube and find guys in their 80s who are Brazilian coral belts.
My God.
And they're out there and they're doing like, you know, the way these old school Jiu Jitsu practitioners, they kind of like, they smack themselves on the chest and they kind of like,
Gorilla.
yeah, they look like gorillas
Yeah.
out there, but they're in their 80s. And at the end, they just give each other a big hug. And you can just tell they've been training together for 50 or 60 years and they're still doing it.
It's amazing. It's true though, because that's why when I look at you, like, it's never too late. And everyone says I should have done this when I was younger. It doesn't.
It's never too. It's never too anything.
Exactly.
Marco.
Exactly.
You're not too dumb. You're not too tall. You're not too feminine. You're not too masculine. You're not too ugly. You're not too anything. It really, there's a place for everybody.
Absolutely.
On the mat. And you know, I had Mark Amrad on my show. He has. In Afghanistan, he had his dominant arm and both of his legs blown off.
Jeez.
And he's a fucking, pardon my language, but he's a frigging blue belt now, and he's just like winning competitions with his one arm. It's just like the craziest thing. It's like the guy's out of his mind. Yeah. He's like literally, he's like, yeah, look at other people that are amputees in wheelchairs, and I try not to judge them. It's like, yeah, it's like, bro, he's just killing it, you know?
Absolutely. So it's never too late. And I told myself too now, like, it's time for me to experience. I want to experience that first competition, whatever the result is. I feel confident now to at least walk on those mats with people looking at me and say, you know, I'm gonna give it my all, and I'm going to the next level, kind of thing. I have that. As before, if you asked me to do this like 2-3 years ago, like, I would never go into jiu-jitsu. Take off my socks. So I'm a sweaty. I used to be so sweaty, and now it's like, it doesn't matter because there's people more sweaty than me. Like, you get this, you're uncomfortable. I'm so good at being uncomfortable.
Dude, we were so sweaty today. I don't know what the deal is, but Ashi, this guy, his name is Matt Dolan, they call him Ashi, and he comes in, and the first thing he does is he cranks the heat.
Oh God.
And then we get rolling, and by the time we're done, the mat is soaked. We are soaked. You just have nasty, smelly guys dripping sweat into you, and it's the best. It's the best. I love it.
And that's where you actually perform. I find I perform the best too, because before our Jiu-Jitsu no Gi class, there's a Muay Thai class. And there's a couple of times I just walk in and the mirror is already fogged up. I'm like, why is it like 10 degrees hotter in here? Like, I can't breathe. The air is thick. I'm eating like the sweat and the thickness of the air. It's like, it's going to be a hard class today, and becomes like one of my favorite classes. It's like, oh my God, this is intense. Super.
Yeah, I just was talking to a guy named Ryan Belleville, who's a Canadian actor and comedian. And he's from Toronto, but he was talking about training in California with these Brazilian guys who hate air conditioning. Apparently the old school Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys, the actual Brazilians that he trains with in California, they don't want the air conditioner on. And it's hot as balls. And they are just like drenched in sweat. It's awful.
Oh my God. Oh, Jim. Well, before we end this, I have to ask you one more question.
Sure.
The whole my white belt, how you started it. I remember you had about like 5,000 or 10,000 when I first followed you. And now you're like over 80,000. Could it be?
I had 850 followers like last February.
God.
And I just crossed 70,000 organic followers,
and
which is extraordinarily blown away and grateful. And I haven't bought. It's been organic. I promise. I have not bought followers. And what's your question?
My question was now you got me thinking about the bot followers, because I work in IT. Actually, I found
they're out there. You can buy bot followers.
This was actually known 5 to 10 years ago. You could have bought followers. That's crazy. That's another world. But my question was to you: where do you see yourself now in the next 5 to 10 years with my white belt?
I think it's a fair question. I think that the heart of the My White Belt thing is about developing relationships. So, you know, you and I didn't know each other before today, but now we're friends.
Exactly.
And you reached out to me, and you said, and I said yes. Well, when I reached out to Shane Mount, who is a black belt in Boise, Idaho. He just left, but he was there. And I said, "Hey, man, I know that you're here, and I see you here, and looks like you have a cool school, and like the stuff that you say. I'm starting a podcast. Do you think you'd come on?" And he was like, "Yeah, man, I'll come on your podcast."
Mm.
And so, I guess what I want to show the world, I want to continue to show the world that there is a kindness and a community that is available in jiu-jitsu, and that if a person is looking for something that is going to make them tough mentally and physically, help them get fit, connect them with people, make them formidable, and allow this thing to make a good person better, I want to continue to build relationships and create content around that goal.
That's amazing.
I always talk about it's the fat dad laying on the couch who can't chase his kids. It's the single mom. It's the single mom with a couple of boys that wants her sons to have a warrior masculine experience. It's the father with his little girl who wants his daughter, by the time she goes to college, to be formidable and confident in her ability to protect herself. It's for the warrior who goes to Afghanistan and gets blown up and comes back and and still has that warrior living inside of him. It's for the guy who used to do triathlons, who is now in his 60s, and those days are behind him, but he needs something. That fire is still burning inside him. That's why my white belt exists.
That's beautiful, Jim. That's amazing. Oh, wow. That's like, even when people were asking, "Oh, you got Jim from my white belt? How'd you do it?" I'm like, I just asked, and he said yes.
That's it. Boom.
You never know.
That's it.
I
asked Tom DeBlas, and he said no, and then minutes later he said yes. And he's been an incredibly great supporter, and that's what this is.
Yes, for sure.
You and I are not. Listen, we both have podcasts. We're not competing. We're not competing against each other. We're training together. Exactly. It's us against the world. Yeah,
that's a lot of.
And the world is invited to our party, Mark.
Exactly. Just try to build a community. I want to reach out to many people as I can. Build a relationship, friends. That's how I look at everything. So I want to say thank you, Jim, so very much for coming today. It was a blessing, an honor. I screamed top of my lungs when I found out you said yes. My wife's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Jim said yes." Like, who? Forget about it.
Forget about it. You won't understand.
I'm happy.
My girlfriend sees me do that all the time when I get people. So yeah, brother, I wish you great success. It looks like you've got a tremendous heart for this, and I want as many people. I want as many good people around the world training jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely,
that's what I want.
Thank you again, Jim. All right, guys, we're tuning out once again. The one, the only Jim from My White Belt. Guys, keep rolling. Os.